All right, welcome all. Thanks for being with us here this afternoon. So I want to welcome you back to the Ballroom and some time we're going to have this afternoon with Jake Wilson. So you can see his title of his presentation up there. Jake currently serves as the Cybersecurity Awareness and Training Program Coordinator at the state of Oregon, where he designs and leads innovative security education programs to foster a culture of vigilance. With over a decade of cybersecurity experience, he specializes in creating gamified, behavioral-focused campaigns that reduce organizational risk. I'm very excited to hear about that. I'd love to do some of that ourselves. Holding CISSP and CEH and SSAP certifications, along with a master's in cybersecurity and information assurance, he brings practical expertise to drive impactful awareness initiatives. Previously, as a senior IT security analyst at Western Governors University, he developed training programs to protect our students, our faculty, and our staff. So please welcome Jake Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I may try to walk around with this and use the clicker. We'll see. How's everybody doing? Had lunch, had a little networking break. Now we're excited to learn about cybersecurity awareness, right? All right, as he mentioned, I'm Jake Wilson. I'm with Enterprise Information Services, Cybersecurity Services within the state of Oregon, and I am the Cybersecurity Awareness and Training Program Coordinator. So as I was starting to create this, I was really intending on just talking about building an effective cybersecurity awareness campaign. Then I started geeking out a little bit and started talking about maturity levels of programs and maybe got a little overboard, but regardless, we'll get through it within 30 minutes and hopefully it's entertaining and educational. So here we go. Oh, there it goes. All right. So we're going to do a little interactive thing here real quick. Before we even jump into this, everyone take a look at the cartoon. And you don't have to go to the mic, but I would love to see just some thoughts or feedback on what you think when you look at this cartoon. Anybody? Yes. Yeah, that's a very good point. Anyone else? Yes.
I work in a grocery store, and the amount of little lapses in cybersecurity behavior that I saw all the time were very concerning because people just did it's not even people just did not know, and I kept seeing threats, and I was like, wait, nobody sees what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes. Oh, that's no bueno. Yeah, that's horrible. Over here.
Information security has to be part of your workforce culture.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Dave really needs to stop clicking links.
Yeah, everyone would agree with that. Okay, those are all right. Okay, why do you think this? You're probably right, and this probably answers my next question. Is that probably why this cartoon was created? Because Dave's clicking links, making bad decisions? Probably. So a long time ago, somebody had provided this to me and said, oh, we should send this out to employees. And it's funny. I think we all probably, if we work in security, we understand it, right? Because for the longest time, humans have been the weakest link. And then I started thinking, I go, well, I don't know if our employees would really like to look at that cartoon and go, yeah, I'm like Dave. I mean, if you look at Dave, he's frumpy, right? Nothing's wrong with that. But there's nobody in his corner cheering him on. He's viewed just kind of alone as a risk. You got the firewalls. What else is in here? Encryption, antivirus. You got all these tools over in the corner. Not only that, they got the little girl. The little girl walking around, excited to cheer that person on their corner. There's no one in Dave's corner helping him out to cheer him on. So that cartoon was probably created, and while it's kind of humorous and, we all get it, it shows Dave as like a risk, not necessarily an asset. No one's in Dave's corner cheering him on, helping him out. The other thing I kind of noticed when I was looking at this, I'm thinking, man, you got encryption, you got firewall, you got antivirus. Like, how many millions of dollars is an organization spending on all of these technical security controls when humans are the biggest risk or the biggest cause of cybersecurity breaches, right? So, and that's what organizations do a lot, They throw all the money at the tools, and sometimes the humans are bypassed, even though, again, for the longest time, people in security have been saying humans are the weakest link in cybersecurity. So there's another saying that I'd like to pose and present to y'all. So rather than using that statement, humans are the weakest link in cybersecurity, another way we could just rephrase that is saying humans are the primary attack vector for cybercriminals, which is true. So if you look at the stats, they're all over the place. Oh, you know what? If I go down, I may not use the clicker that I want on my notes. Still don't have my notes. Okay, that works. But yeah, if you look at statistics, they're kind of all over the place. So when it comes to human related causes of data breaches, I've seen them at 60%, seen like 90%. I think the latest one was 90% or 82% of data breaches involve a human element. That was in the 2025 Verizon DVIR. They're out there actually as well. You can scan the code if you want to look at that report. So there's the human, this is why security awareness matters. We'll kind of get into this. So there's the human element, right? Because humans make mistakes, and that happens for a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But there's also issues with the technology, right? So misconfigured firewalls, email security errors, antivirus, those are usually all set up by humans as well. And there was another statistic here. I think it was IBM Security Cost of a Data Breach Report. 15% of breaches stem from technical misconfigurations. So, and when I was thinking about this too, and I was thinking about this a while ago, like if I was an end user, I know a lot of folks in security, if somebody clicks on a phishing email, like a legitimate phishing email, the security folks always get upset. The SOC, they raise the alarm and they go, oh, these people, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? If I was in that position and somebody came to me and go, why are you clicking on all these links? I would go, well, why are your email security programs, your secure email gateways, letting these links come to me in the first place? I know that's a whole different conversation. It's not easy to eliminate all the emails. You're constantly creating rules, so I totally understand. But so security awareness matters. One, for the human side of things, the end users, because we're creatures of habit. We make mistakes all the time. We're trusting individuals. There's a lot more that goes into that. But also the technical roles. We need to provide security awareness to the technical folks that are putting all these technical security controls in place. And then, of course, there's like the mandates, like NIST 853, PCI DSS, NIST 800-171. You look at all that stuff, security awareness is required. I'm going to be drinking my water quite a bit. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's an excellent point. I was actually thinking about that a little while ago. They're really a team, right? So the technical security controls and the humans are really intended to be a team, but in this depiction, in this cartoon, they're really showing them as like adversaries. They're working against each other, which isn't really, so, and that's why I put that note under there. Probably not a good cartoon to send to your employees. So, probably has been sent many, many times because it is kind of funny. And, if you're in the security side of things, it makes sense. But for a general end user, probably won't sit too well with them. All right, let's talk about security awareness program. That didn't switch, did it? Let's try this. Yeah, maybe I'll have to switch here and do the clicker. Anyway, all right. let's see. Maturing your security awareness program. So I wasn't going to include this, but I think it's important, if you have a security awareness program, to have a starting point. One of the first things that you do when you create a cybersecurity awareness and education program is you want to assess your maturity. You want to figure out where you are and where you want to go. And there's a handful of different maturity models out there. SANS is a well-known one. That's there on the top. The one below that is from a vendor called Living Security. KnowBe4, which is another vendor, they have a maturity model. But these are great to look at. So just as a starting point. So when you're creating a program plan saying why your program exists, why, the executive summary, what your program is going to include, it's really good to have an understanding of these different maturity models so you know where you're at, and then assess year over year and see where you're trying to get to. So stage one, I'm not going to go in depth with these, but I would recommend looking at the SANS one. It's pretty in depth. Same thing with the Living Security one. It's pretty good. There's a non-existent program, right? You're not doing anything. Maybe you're a brand new company. You don't even know where to start. Then stage two, your compliance focus. That's just checking the box, putting out annual training, hoping people complete it, maybe looking at completion rates. And then there's different stages: promoting awareness and behavior change, long-term sustainment and culture change, and a metrics framework. We'll kind of get into that later on, but it would be good to take a look at these maturity models. That changed? Okay, so real quick, blueprint for effective cybersecurity awareness campaigns. So one of the things, and this is, I remember hearing this in a book by Perry Carpenter. He has a book called Transformational Security Awareness. I think it's what neuroscientists, marketers, and storytellers can teach us about security awareness. If you have Spotify Premium, it's a free audiobook. It's like 11 hours or something like that, but it's really cool. But one of the things he mentions in there, which makes complete sense, is repeated exposure of the content we're delivering to our employees. So, if you're like on a compliance focus, or you're trying to get past that compliance focus stage, you might be doing your annual training. Maybe you send out an email every month. But the research shows that individuals need 5 to 7 touch points from a marketing perspective. 5 to 7 touch points for messages to stick, for it to actually make a difference. So it's repetition, but not the same thing over and over, a variety of repetition. So in the statistic here, the Journal of Advertising Research confirms multi-touchpoint campaigns boost retention by 50%. So what are some of these ways that we could reach out to our employees? One, there's email. Email is great because it goes out to all employees. They may not read it, right? But you could track engagement through those emails that you're sending out. Microlearning is huge. I'm a big fan of it. So, a lot of organizations have been doing your 60-minute annual compliance training every single year, and, that's kind of what they measure. But you could do 5-minute microlearning modules every single month on a variety of topics. It's the same as 60 minutes, and it's less time for the employees to complete those courses. They'd probably appreciate it better, probably retain it better. I don't have the statistics here also, but if you're sitting in an hour-long webinar or training, I think the research is like by the end of it, 50% of it's already gone. And then 4 months later, like another 50% is gone. So over time, all that stuff's going away. So hopefully that's not the case for this presentation here. So it's possible. So microlearning, that's a big one. The intranet. Utilize your intranet as much as possible. Get your content on the front page. A lot of employees, their homepage goes directly to their intranet, probably because they don't know how to change their homepage or their favorite page when they start their computer, which is a benefit for the security awareness program, because as soon as they log in, go to the intranet, bam, you got information about a webinar you're hosting or a quick little video or whatever the content is. So intranet's great. Digital displays or posters, those work a lot better than just long text messages on posters or emails. So having a digital display or a poster in the hallway kind of sounds cliche. I know it's probably overused. Some of you, if you go to an office, some of those poster boards are just filled up with a ton of stuff. A lot of it's text message, or a lot of it's written text, typed out text. Most people probably don't look at that stuff, but if you have a visually engaging poster, people will probably pay attention to it. Nice, short, sweet, something for them to take away immediately. Security champions. Does everybody know what a security champion is? All right. So security champions or security ambassadors are embedded in your organization all over various different departments. I will say this, so I've been at organizations where they go, oh, we got to have people, that know about security as your security champion. That's probably the last thing you want. What you want is people that are interested or excited to learn about cybersecurity, so they'll actually pay attention to what you're providing them, content every single month. You could give them information about the webinar, an email to send out, the digital displays, whatever it is. They could talk about it in their weekly stand-ups. These don't have to be technical folks. These are just people that are excited to learn, excited to be engaged, and they have an eagerness to help their coworkers. Security champions are great because they're embedded directly within individual teams, and they could speak to those individuals. Those individuals, if they have an incident they need to report or a concern, they could go directly to that cybersecurity champion who's kind of acts as a liaison for the security team, because some folks are just kind of scared to go to a security team. They're afraid to admit they made a mistake, and they're probably afraid to do that because maybe they were sent that cartoon a long time ago by somebody and they go, oh, they think I'm stupid already. The last thing I want to do is report an incident. They're going to think I'm really dumb. So use your security champions. Nudges, I'll talk about nudges in a little bit, but those are just quick little nudges via Slack, Teams, email, something like that. We could talk about automating those, how that works. They're great. Webinars are great. Webinars and workshops. These could be lunch and learns, brown bags. Pretty self-explanatory, but I think it's good when you're doing a webinar not to just talk the entire time. Try to make it engaging. Like I've done one on passwords about creating strong passwords and passphrases where we don't just go, you got to create 12 plus characters and do this, do this, do this. Basically, you're just repeating what your policy already says, which they may or may not have ever already read or may be hard to understand. But actually show them, and you don't have to get too technical, but you could talk about how passwords are actually hashed and salting. It's kind of interesting for people that are, joining. They want to learn a little bit more about that. You could go to haveibeenpawned.com and show them, hey, here's an email address you could put in. This is how many times your account has been involved in a data breach. This is the type of hashing algorithm it was used, and you could show, here's the reverse hash of an MD5 or something like that. So it's pretty interesting, and people enjoy that kind of stuff, and they'll immediately go out. That's the feedback I've gotten. Well, they'll go out to that website and I'll say, hey, if any of your accounts have been involved in this data breach, you should go out and change your password right now, set up MFA. So don't just do a webinar, do like a workshop where it's a hands-on approach. People end up retaining information a lot better when you're doing that. So we talked about repeated exposure, cognitive science, leverage relatable content for deeper processing, make it personal. So that's a pretty interesting thing. How much time do I got? 15 minutes. So there's a theory called levels of processing. I've been pretty interested in this, but it's basically when you relate something to like a memory or an idea or a thought that you have, you retain it better. You have like a deeper processing of it for that memory. So a good example is this, when I was living in Arizona a few years ago, I was going on a hike with my kids. I think it was like a parent-teacher council thing. And this guy came up and introduced himself, and his name was Scott or something like that. I go, Scott. Okay, I got to repeat your name so I don't forget it, And I did that for like 5 minutes. Maybe not 5 minutes. I wasn't saying Scott for 5 minutes. That'd be a little weird. You're probably like, I'm going to walk a little faster. But he goes, what's your name? I go, Jake, like Jake from State Farm. And he goes, oh, okay, And some of you may not get that reference. It's a little dated now. But, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours goes by, and we're leaving, and this guy goes, I go, hey, see you later. He goes, all right, see you, Jake. And I go, dude, what's that guy's name again? Like, I repeated his name over and over and over, and I still didn't remember it. So it's just kind of an interesting thing. If you want to read about it, levels of processing. So when you make things relatable, like pop culture references or, song lyrics or movie quotes for passwords, things like that, usually individuals will retain that information a lot better than just giving them the same information over and over and over and not changing it with variety. So I had a little bullet point in here about micro-learning. So that reduces cognitive overload, boosting retention by 20 to 50%. We already kind of talked about that. Engagement, making learning interactive and memorable. I kind of touched on that with, the webinar about passwords, but it's really important to do that stuff. So, and we'll get into the next slide about engaging in memorable content. And then there's other things you can do for your cybersecurity awareness campaigns. Trivia, it sounds kind of like slapstick, silly or whatever, but people really like trivia. They like competing against each other. If you have a leaderboard involved, leaderboards are great. There's people that go out and leave Yelp reviews every single day just because they want to see their name climb that chart, and they get that personalized email saying, hey, you're in the top 1% of emails in Eugene, Oregon. I used to do it all the time for TripAdvisor. You guys know what TripAdvisor is? So I used to leave reviews all the time on TripAdvisor, and it was so cool because I'd get an email, saying, hey, you're the top whatever percent of reviewers in Portland and all that. And I finally got a gift in the mail from the CEO of TripAdvisor. I was like, you're going to get hey, we want to reward you for this gift for being one of our top reviewers. I wasn't necessarily leaving great reviews. I was bashing some hotels and things like that if they were dirty. But I was so excited, and then they ended up giving me a little travel keychain thing for my luggage. It was green. It said TripAdvisor. I don't know. That's cool. But I'm probably only one of the top 5% of people in Portland or Oregon that have this keychain. So I think I ended up throwing it away. But anyway, the thought is there. But gamified learning with leaderboards is wonderful. Whoa, we're moving quick. I don't know why this. I'm working on it. Did it change?
Whatever last thing you did, kind of flipped back on.
Let me try this here. Let me just. There's the back one. There's that one. All right. Making content engaging and memorable. So, relatable scenarios, personal and real-world examples are great. I know Cinnamon talked about this earlier during her panel, but when you provide someone a real-world example of something and you make it personable, they just naturally care a lot more. If you're just talking about, this is why it's important to create a strong password, and this is why it's important to use MFA. But if you make it personal and talk about what could happen to their personal accounts, their bank accounts, use real-world examples, naturally people are just going to care about that more. They're going to actually want to listen. So, try to use relatable scenarios when you're providing content in your monthly campaign, quarterly campaign, whatever it's going to be. Pop culture, GIFs, memes, song lyrics, movie quotes. I know it sounds a little like Gen Z or whatever, but people learn in different ways. Some people actually really look forward to that annual training and they'll love it. Some people, they won't pay attention, but they'll pay attention to a funny GIF. Is it GIF or GIF? What do you guys think? I think it's GIF. Anybody think it's GIF? Graphical interface format, right? So anyway, no big deal if you think it's GIF, like the peanut butter. But memes, song lyrics, movie quotes. So I've used examples of, pop culture references in annual training, or not annual. I used to provide quarterly training, required training. But for example, is there any Kansas City Chiefs fans in here? Nobody? Everybody knows who Patrick Mahomes is, right? So a few years ago when he was in the Super Bowl, he was going for a three-peat, so the third Super Bowl win. And I just took a little jab at him. I don't have anything against him. But, one of the options was hey, what is an example of a good password? And you have a bad password, bad password, bad password. Then a good password was no three-peat for Mahomes, LOL, exclamation point. So, but that's probably something that people are going to remember, at least if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I also had another example of Swiftie put Kelsey on the map. So Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, if you know who they are. But anyway, that's not true, by the way. He was already a thing before her.
Jake,
all right. So another thing.
Jake, I was just going to mention something to reinforce what you were talking about there. I had I think it was California State University Northridge did something like this for like the registrar's office. And they were trying to figure out, like, students never read emails. So they ended up doing some of the pop culture GIF meme kind of thing and provided like a little entertainment or kind of humorous thing. And they actually increased it, so they ended up with a 67 to 70% open rate on their emails because they kept things limited to like 3 bullet points. Boom, boom, boom. This is what we want you to know. Click in here to go deeper if you want. But they provided something they started looking forward to. It was like a little humorous thing in their day. And
Yeah.
it just, that's an insane rate for an email opening kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to incorporate pop culture references in my phishing simulations, and I really didn't do enough research probably to see if it was effective or not, but I just got good feedback from it. So for example, like I would have Ethan Hunt send a document that said marked confidential. Anybody know who Ethan Hunt is? Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. So if somebody accidentally clicked on it, they'd see a picture of Tom Cruise pop up, jumping on a couch or some other funny thing, and they'll go, oh, man, all right, I should have known, and I've done one from, hey, you've been invited to this Microsoft team, the FAST project, blah, 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 from Dominic Toretto from Fast and the Furious. I'm not a big fan of Fast and the Furious, but my point was I kept hearing feedback from people, and they go, I actually really like getting the phishing simulations. I'm like, really? Nobody likes getting phishing simulations. But people would actually go, oh, yeah, every time I get them, I'd see what the pop culture reference was. I'd use like Peter Baelish from Game of Thrones. I had Jenny from the help desk, and her number was 8675309. Unfortunately, I did have somebody go, I talked to her because she kept clicking and clicking and clicking, and I'd have these conversations with them, individuals that were repeat clickers. I go, well, what's going on? Why are you clicking? They go, well, I don't know if it's a pop culture reference, so I just want to click the link to see what the landing page is to see if it is. I'm like, well, I don't want you to do that, So you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. Get your leadership involved. I think that's huge. So every organization, most organizations have, mission, vision, values. Tie your security awareness program and all your campaigns back to that organization's mission. So whatever it is, you could always tie security awareness back to an organization's mission, unless they have like this crazy, horrible mission, of course. But if you have your leadership involved, I think it's great. So the last university I was at, we had the president of the university actually sit down for an hour and just do a Q&A session talking about cybersecurity. And he's not a cybersecurity pro or anything, but talked about the little simple basic steps he uses in his personal life to help keep his own account secure and his family secure. And we had a ton of people attend that because the president of the university actually engaging. Visually engaging content, we already talked about that. Images are recalled better than text. So something to think about. Branded campaign themes. So when you send your content out, if you have a logo, if you have branded elements, try to leverage those as much as possible. That way your recipients always know who it's coming from. It's coming from a trusted source. So don't just send out a random thing and then next month another random thing, and it's not really personalized to your department. Interactive visuals are great, short, sweet, little videos playing on digital display screens. Mascots, I think mascots are a little tough to pull off. Organizations seem to do it, and they seem to like it. Like the Ducks, of course. Ducks have a mascot, but a lot of organizations have a cybersecurity mascot, and they'll create little plush dolls, and they'll hand them out to the champions, or they'll hand them out to people that are reporting the most phishing emails, etc. So I just put an example of Smokey the Bear. He's an example of kind of a security awareness mascot, right? Only you can prevent forest fires. This guy's been around for years. He's on our license plates, for heaven's sake. I actually just ordered one a few weeks ago, which is pretty cool. But that's a good example of a mascot. I mean, you'd see it on commercials. You'd see posters. You're driving into a forest, and there's a sign talking about the fire danger. So excellent use of a mascot there. Virtual activities, I mentioned hands-on learning, escape rooms, gamified solo or team activities with leaderboards. One of the other things I did in the past was host virtual escape rooms. Now, there's a cost to this, unless you can create your own for free. But those were great. I had host hour-long virtual escape rooms where individuals, they could join as a team building event. You could present it that way. And we had just people volunteering, signing up their own team. Their executives were signing up the teams. And I mean, we'd have people spending hours and hours and hours in these virtual escape rooms learning about cybersecurity. So very cool thing to do. It changes on here, but it doesn't change on here. I think at some point I would have figured out what and I think you got to go up, down, left, right, A, B, start. All right, we're almost out of time. So it doesn't change on here though. Okay. Proactive human risk management. All right. So this is where I got a little geeked out and probably too in the weeds, but in order to kind of get to that higher stage of maturity, so we're going from non-compliance to compliance-focused. Maybe we're doing a little more stuff like sending out emails, monthly campaigns, really to get to that final stage of maturity, which takes a long time. It takes like 5 years to kind of really change a culture, is doing proactive human risk management, not reactive when people make mistakes or, simple accidents, but really trying to identify the risky behaviors that your employees are taking, as well as the secure behaviors, and then tying that back into a human risk score. There's vendors that do this, but I've also seen organizations create their homegrown thing without the help of a vendor, which is pretty awesome. The risky behaviors could be you're clicking on a real phishing email, you're clicking on a phishing simulation, you're logging in from a suspicious location, you have strange IP address, you don't have multi-factor authentication, your workstation's out of date, a lot of risky behaviors, right? All those risky behaviors, plus your secure behaviors, which could be reporting a real phishing threat, reporting a phishing simulation, you have MFA, things like that. There's a lot. Those could tie back into a human risk score. Now, you could use a vendor, you could create your own. And through these human risk scores, you could do more targeted campaigns to those individuals. So instead of having a one-size-fits-all approach for your entire organization, you could go, hey, our marketing department is clicking on a lot of phishing emails, or they're always using a VPN they're not supposed to. Let's do a targeted campaign to these individuals. And you could actually break down risk scores by department, by job title, by employee tenure. The sky's the limit, really, if you want to get into this kind of stuff. So I have 1 minute left. It's not changing, but it says, do you have any questions? If it's about how to work this, I'm not going to be able to help you out. I'll probably look it up when I go, oh, sorry. All right. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead. That's a good question. It's really, really cool, and it's actually really fascinating. So I used a vendor, and they had all these different storylines. And there was a storyline specifically around insider threat where it was like, you're thrown into this virtual escape room, and you actually choose somebody to be the leader. And that leader leads their team, and they take turns being the leader, so the leader kind of has access to resources, or the leader doesn't have access to resources, but the team does. And the team is looking through different files that are in there. So for example, like the insider risk one, you had different files on different individuals. And within those files, there were little snippets of information that would ask you a question like around cybersecurity, and then they'd have quick little questions about MFA, and then there'd be little puzzles about like creating passwords using emojis, and things like that. So it's all tied back to cybersecurity, but more than happy to talk to you about this stuff because it was really cool. There are a lot of different options. I think we're out of time, but if anyone has, I can. Yeah, that vendor was a company called. I'm going to try to get this last slide up in case people want to. Living Security. So he's going to get it the first time. Watch this. But yeah, Living Security. They had those virtual escape rooms, multiple storylines. It was a really cool vendor. We'd have teams of, sometimes it was one person, teams up to 15 people, and they all take turns. And then we would actually create a leaderboard where you could have all of those teams. It would show the fastest they were able to complete that activity or that virtual escape room. And then we even had teams go, hey, do you mind if we do this again so we could get first place? Because they were trying to beat everybody else so bad. So. Isn't that weird? I don't know. I know I downloaded something weird on my laptop the other day. And all right, I think that's it for me. Thank you all. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, would like help with your security awareness campaigns, looking for free resources, free speakers, I know quite a bit. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'm more than happy to chat with you all. Thank you.